One more week away from the best ball finals, the ever elusive week 17. Just one more run good week for all of us. We're heading into week 16. We're going to start to break down our best ball teams, where they sit, how live are they, maybe tilt a little bit about the teams we lost. This is a safe space. We're going to dive into everything week 16, best ball semifinals, and what's ahead in week 16 and maybe a sprinkle of week 17. Let's do it. Amen, Jenks. Let's go. I'm much more excited. Here's a weird one. We talked about this on the Monday show, where Rob and I were breaking down the finale and just kind of the overall sweat from week 15. Rob discussed it in the most perfect way. The week 15 is the most frustrating emotional sweat of the best ball season. The whole regular season, no one individual week changes everything. Of course, we have the injuries, we have all of that different stuff. But in week 15, it's the first time you still have a bunch of teams. You don't know what to root for necessarily, outside of like a couple of players. Maybe you have a favorite team. We don't really know what to do in week 15. And early on, maybe you were advancing a bunch of teams and they slowly started to trickle out, which is kind of what happened to me, quite frankly. Or maybe you weren't advancing a ton of teams and some late, Josh Allen and Amon-Ra, some of those things came through later. We unfortunately did not get much in the Sunday night football game or the Monday night, either of the two Monday night football games. So it was a little bit of the week petered out, but it was a ton of fun, week 15. But week 16 is where it really gets fun to me, in my biased and humble opinion. We know who to root for now. I'll pull up some of mine. Dogs are excited for week 16. We know who to root for. We only have so many teams. No matter, I drafted a ton of best ball teams and have 13 total across Underdog and DraftKings to sweat. So I pretty much know, who my players are, what teams are live, what teams aren't, what happens. Somebody must be Amazon. A lot of Amazon packages going on around this house at this current time. So if you hear the dogs barking at the mailman or the Amazon man, just know that they're also very, very excited for week 16. But let's go quickly to you guys here. Amen. We're excited. This is very funny. Pod Luck is definitely back. I'm sure you guys have seen it on social media. All of the, super logical takes on Pod Luck. Amen, Jake. Welcome. I think we've missed you a little bit around these parts. Josh, 5-man pods. This is kind of a fun, sneaky part of the best ball, sweat. Here is everybody always just talks about Best Ball Mania. And I get it. It's the flagship tournament of the whole summer. We all love it. We all play it, no matter if you max it or don't. Everybody wants to get some bullets in to try to make, life-changing money in Best Ball Mania. But the odds of any of us, no matter what our advance rate was, amazing advance rate, bad advance rate, whatever players we have, you had Josh Allen, you still need such insane teams just to make it to week 17 in Best Ball Mania. And it's like the only tournament everybody ever references. Partially, I get it because it's the one tournament with public data outside of drafters. They did, I guess, release weekly winners and such. But you know what I mean? Everybody is just so fixated on Best Ball Mania when almost everybody's going to lose money. Like, even if you make the final, you can, lose money, barely break even, what have you. There's so many of these other tournaments, like Josh mentioned, Poodle, MMG. There's 5-man pods. There's stuff that still hasn't even paid out yet. You got to make it to week 17. I'm in particular, we'll see in a second. I'm in particular mostly sweating the DraftKings 555, where I have two teams left. I drafted 20 over the summer into that tournament, advanced 5, and got 2 of those into week 16. So I'm pretty fired up about that. Don't tell Kareem. Don't tell Kareem. I'm gonna call him out on the next Legendary Sickos because I beat him. I held him off. Shout out to Desmond Ritter. He should have beat me. Kareem definitely should have beat me. He had Brock Bowers. I had Aaron Jones. And He was a favorite for sure. But Desmond Ridder is so bad that it didn't matter. Add Desmond Ridder to the list of worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Every game we watch with bad quarterback play, I learned there's this pool of worst quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think we understand quite what worst means in our space. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks, but Ridder is the worst, and Sam Howell is the worst, and Kirk Cousins is the worst, and Daniel Jones and Tim Boyle, and on down the list. These guys are all the worst. They're all terrible. You can't possibly score any fantasy points with these guys, but Desmond Ridder, that was factual. That also hurt me. I had a bunch of Brock Bowers. Could have used a big Brock Bowers game. But there's a lot of tournaments out there that we can sweat, and they're not all best ball mania. And some of them, as Josh says, are much smaller, easier advancements in week 17. And let me tell you, that's if anybody ever asks me, like, what I want to get into best ball, I don't want to spend almost $4,000 on maxing best ball mania, but I want to draft a bunch of teams because that I've learned that that's the right thing to do. Those tournaments, puppies, poodles, Pomeranians, Chihuahuas, whatever, all of that stuff, the $3 tournaments on DraftKings, $3.20 max, they run a ton of them. I got a couple alive still there. As we all want to have the $1 million sweats for sure. But if you really want to enjoy like this time of year and have, a chip in a chair and a chance to make the finals, there's nothing like it, making the finals. I've played DFS for a long time and a little bit of poker back in the day. And, we've all played a lot of these games, had sweats, sports betting sweats, whatever. And there's really is just like nothing like all that time you spent coming down to that one team and rooting for it in week 17. It's really, really the best. Hello, Ben. Root for Gibbs, Al Boogie, and Jason. Al and Jason both rooting for Gibbs. Well, I don't think anybody has to do much rooting because Jahmyr Gibbs is just a stone cold smash. I have some interesting theories, but it's mostly more related to the DFS side of things for Jahmyr Gibbs, where he's also going to be very popular, and that's just a little bit of a different game. If you have Jahmyr Gibbs in best ball, like wheels up, man, smash, be super excited. Like I don't have any Gibbs teams, and I'm terrified of especially because he had a good game last week, so he's not going to be 0% owned. I'm terrified of Jahmyr Gibbs, but I do think the Lions have Super Bowl aspirations. Now they do need to win to get the bye. They need to keep winning. But I'm going to be genuinely curious to see what they do at the running back position this week. Jahmyr Gibbs is obviously going to be the lead and the starter and get the majority of the work. But oftentimes when these situations happen, like with a Jerome Ford, Jahmyr Gibbs, whoever, we always think a guy got hurt, so everybody's going to turn into peak CMC from a role perspective. And like a lot of times it doesn't work out that way. Like maybe, so Jahmyr Gibbs goes from 50-50 to like 65, which is more than enough to make him smash. Maybe 70, but like he's not going to play like Craig Reynolds is going to play. These guys are going to play. So I'm fascinated to see how that works out with the Lions. For you guys, I'll cheer for you guys with Gibbs, and frankly, I'm probably going to play him in DFS still, even with some of those questions. So maybe I'll be rooting alongside for you, with you. Ben is rooting for a hyper fragile team with Gibbs, Brees, James Cook, and Chase Brown. Can't have much better of a hyper fragile team than that. But we'll see about Brees. But man, the other three just, and it's not like Brees can't get there. We'll see. Amen, Jake. Our good friend Dorito, James Conner, Slappies Unite. You will see in just a couple of minutes. James Conner, one of the defining players of my week 16 incoming. And I did draft a bunch of James Conner, so I'm happy about that process-wise. And quite frankly, very happy to have someone like him to push back against not having Jahmyr Gibbs, not having Bijan Robinson, not having Saquon, not having Derrick Henry. Like those guys were all great picks. If people have those on their teams heading into week 16, you should be elated. But the guys like James Conner, of course, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford, these guys can help offset some of that. And then you have Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or Amon-Ra St. Brown or whoever, CeeDee Lamb. I think I got a CD team kicking around. You're hoping, right, that your 2v2s, 3v3s are what get there. And James Conner is a huge part of that. for me. Scott's got a Greyhound 4-man. See, that's so fun. Like, of course, you can always have the typical pod variance even in a 4-man pod, but in the Greyhound, like 4-man pods, exactly like what he says, you need to be so much less perfect. You need to get lucky, but not as lucky in something like that. Best Ball Mania is 1 out of 16. Even if you advanced 16 teams, the math says you might get one. It doesn't work out that way, right? You can have stronger you can have teams, your expectation based on the teams that you have and the pods that you're in can be higher, of course. But I have two Best Ball Mania teams, and quite frankly, I'm not very hopeful for either of them. So I'm not sweating those too hard going into Monday night. I had 4. And we talked on the show on Monday that I had the chance to get up to 8. 2 were, I think I mentioned on the show, 2 were like locked in. So 2 was the floor, and I could get up to 8 pending, Darnold, Jefferson, Bowers, Addison, all these different guys could give me a shot at up to 8. And, the Monday did not go well. It did not go my way. Shout out to Rob, co-host here at Spike Week. And he needed either a bad Jefferson game or like a big Jefferson game. And he and I both lamenting the dropped touchdown by Justin Jefferson there. There was just brutal. I've never seen him. I'm not sure he ever has made a mistake like that, and found the perfect middle ground to knock out some of Rob's Best Ball Mania teams. And that is the way that it goes, right? Sometimes you run hot. Like there's versions of this simulation that I have a bunch more teams, but I don't. And it is what it is. We got several chips and several chairs, and I'm super duper pumped for week 16. Yeah, appreciate it, Josh. I mean, if you're gonna run hot, getting 10% of your teams into week 16, the 555 is the one to do it. And what I was talking about with that one, why I'm excited about that one, it's only 7 teams. If you have to get first to advance, but it's only 7 total teams. And one team in particular, I think like that's probably just entirely what I'm sweating, is basically that one team, whatever the hell else happens with all of the other teams. So be it. Hopefully we got 13 total teams. I don't care what tournament it is. If we can make one final, cool. That's the way we can make our whole season. Stanko's got 16 UD teams live with 3 on DraftKings, 19 total. Hot damn. That's amazing. Rob with 14 teams left. 14 teams left for Rob. And of course, mentioning that week 15 was the 0 RB week that really, wow. I can't believe it all happened at once. Like, it's one thing for like, oh man, Devontae big game. Oh man, Evans big game. Oh man, Amon-Ra big game. And it's like everybody did it. Like Terry McLaurin scored like 27 DraftKings points or something, and was kind of an afterthought on the week. Justin Jefferson went 7 for 75 and 1, and was like, whatever. Like, it's fine, because so many receivers did so much and so few running backs. You needed Chase Brown, not needed. You wanted Chase Brown and James Conner. They were really, Jahmyr Gibbs was great too. But nobody really went so crazy. Like some of the teams I advanced, the running backs didn't score that many points. But when you have, say, a Devontae Adams or a Brian Thomas Jr. or Mike Evans or whatever, that helps. And so that's not going to continue. That won't happen again this week with all of the wide receivers doing all of the scoring, but it was certainly a fun one. And again, we talk about luck and variance. That's all part of the luck and variance. We fixate on some of the elements of variance that stick out the most to us in that given moment. We forget about like some of the other stuff, like Saquon and Derrick Henry both having total floor. I mean, the Derrick Henry thing is the greatest example. We were talking about this last night in the Discord, which, of course, if you're not in the Spike Week Discord, there's a link to it in the description of this video. It is free. We're all hanging out, sweating teams, talking about teams. There's a game day chat channel where we all kind of hang out and just collectively, it's like we're all going to the virtual bar and hanging out on our phones or laptops or whatever during the game, celebrating, getting angry, tilting, whatever. So check that out. But there's just thousands upon thousands of messages sent on game days in that channel. So it's a ton of fun to hang out in there. But like the run out for Derrick Henry, quite frankly, it was like perfect for week 15. If you got him through, whether you are a robust running back bro or not, or he was your hero running back, or he theoretically had the single greatest spot you could ever possibly draw up for Derrick Henry. And I think it just goes to show how little we know about how the specific results are going to play out. The Ravens just curb stomped, right? The Giants. It's embarrassing. They had no chance, and it was all Lamar in the passing game. Meanwhile, the Giants have none of their good defenders left. They were a bad run defense with Dexter Lawrence and Bobby Okereke. They were like the worst run defense in the NFL, and they slowed down Derrick Henry. And then Lamar just hit a bunch of big throws because Lamar is, 1A, 1B with Josh Allen, best quarterback in the NFL. And sometimes that shit happens. Sometimes Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers get their mind meld going back together, and Devontae goes for 40. And, it is what it is. The exact results are so wild and unpredictable that that's what makes it fun. Afternoon versus air. Let's see here. Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'll go ahead and pull up some teams because as Kevin mentions, needs Goff, Amon-Ra, and Sam Laporta, but then also has that Derrick Henry. What a great guy to get through, both Saquon and Derrick Henry. If you are able to get them through, to go to war with them at a lower advance rate in week 16 than there was in week 15, that's the dream, right? Find a way to sneak really, really high upside guys through a week when they have bad scores. Somehow, I'm not putting Cooper Kupp in this category, to be totally clear. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not any of those guys. But I have I think it's 4 Cooper Kupp teams, which I can't really understand how the hell that he scored 0. Like he scored 0 total points. And so, but like Kevin mentioned, I didn't actually draft a ton of Lions stacks and got this chow through with Jared Goff, and one of my BBM teams is Jared Goff. Hilariously, they are both Jared Goff and Daniel Jones teams. So that's, not amazing. But nonetheless, got to Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You see Amon-Ra on both of these. And then one is Kincaid Jonnu, the other is Kittle Chig. I think that this Chow team is pretty good, if I recall. Yeah. But to your point, it's tough with teams like the Lions to need like multiple, like I need Goff and Amon-Ra to go nuts 3 weeks in a row. And right, I only have Daniel Jones here. And quite frankly, it wouldn't matter that much who, like, okay, I guess if there's Baker or something, but like if there's Geno on here, does it really change the calculus? Like Amon-Ra is my first round pick, Goff is my QB1. If there's Geno, if there's Stafford, if there's Drake May, if there's Russ, does it really change? Nah, I need Amon-Ra and I need Goff. Technically, I would have more outs, but that's just kind of how it goes. But it's kind of funny. That's a lot of. It's not kind of funny. It's pretty funny by the best ball gods. A bunch of my teams being a 0 running back, or a modified 0 running back, whatever. A lot of my running back rooms are a lot better than my wide than my wide receiver rooms. This Chow team is, like I said, probably my best team on Underdog. Mixon, Connor, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson. Obviously, Devin Singletary is mostly useless, although he was not so useless this week, and Jordan Mason is hurt. But to have Mixon, Connor, Aaron Jones, and B-Rob to punch back against some of the good running backs, and then this team does have Stephon Diggs, but Amon-Ra going to need Drew Lock to remember how to play football, or learn, I guess, how to play football this week to get neighbors going. But actually have, Tolbert can score. Bateman just used Bateman's score again. But you start to see the cracks in your teams like that with the Goff thing, where like, okay, I need a non-running quarterback to the first round wide receiver to cook again. What they just did was, and they can do this, right? The Lions can do this just about whenever they want, but they went totally nuts in garbage time, and they were fine during the course of the game, but they weren't exactly like lighting up the scoreboard. It's just that Josh Allen was scoring on every single possession. The Bills were just unstoppable on offense. So like the Lions resorted to kicking onside kicks with 11 minutes left in the game because they're just desperate to try to do anything to get back in the game, give themselves a shot at winning. And they almost got kind of close at the end, but needing Goff to Amon-Ra, needing Neighbors to do it again, or specifically like Bateman to do it again, the path becomes pretty thin, which you obviously hope for, just having live bodies. Can Jalen Tolbert catch a touchdown again? Sure, it's possible, but you need a little bit bigger. Can Diami catch a long one, right? Can Malik Washington do something because Jalen Waddle's hurt and led the game in receiving yards, Malik Washington in week 15. But it's like Josh says they're changing things on Underdog right now as we speak. This is definitely true. Ben says at least the Lions need to score a ton of points considering their entire defense is on IR. That's the one thing that gives me hope for my couple of Goff teams is I just don't know that they can stop anybody enough to where they won't keep scoring. I'm not expecting 40 fantasy points from Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course. But like that's the outs that we have now are because the Lions defense is just absolutely destroyed by injuries. Let's see. Vadim says, got a Cooper Kupp team through. So let me just really quickly, I'll just flip over to my exposures. Don't give me hope, he says. Yeah, somehow you see here. So I did so wherever, if Dial is in here, to make you happy, I made sure and sorted them by order, right? But somehow I was overweight Devontae Adams. Like I was pretty significantly overweight a lot of the wide receivers in that range. I'm overweight him, McLaurin, Jefferson, etc. So it's not like too surprising to see. But Devontae was like fine all year. He was never really super special, but it goes to show you what the huge nuclear game in a playoff round will do to your exposures and to anybody else's. And like Devontae, frankly, right? Devontae, McLaurin, Neighbors, let's see, Evans. There's I think I have one, two Amon-Ra teams. There's a BTJ down here somewhere. Yeah, one BTJ, right? They carry the Cooper Kupps of the world along. And that's kind of the goal. That's kind of what you want. Is Cooper Kupp the perfect guy to have? No, like I would rather carry Derrick Henry, or particularly I'd rather carry Saquon Barkley along, than him. Or I think I have a Metcalf or two. Yeah, like I have 4 Kupp and 2 Metcalf. I'm not like super jazzed to have them, but there are worse guys. Specifically Kupp. There's a lot worse guys to have. It's funny. We'll see you guys in the lab. Yes, I made sure to sort them. Very beautiful. Really, a lot of talent went into copy pasting, running a couple formulas, and then sorting. So thank you. I am an expert in many things, including not Google Sheets. But I did used to work in finance, so I still got a couple tricks of the trade. Running spreadsheets for fucking Fortune 100 companies. The whole goddamn company runs off of Excel. So my life was Excel for 8 years or whatever. And I've lost a lot of those skills. I have very few meaningful skills in the real business world anymore, but I guess I could maybe still do enough in Excel. But just quickly, I'm just going to run down some of this exposure. Vadim says, yeah, Kupp got carried by CD, Devontae, and BTJ, and you add in James Conner and Chase Brown. Like, yeah, it's the stone cold nuts, man. Like, Amon-Ra is better than CD, I guess, but like close enough, right? That's what you really. Tight ends were mostly negligible in week 15. Jonnu was the best. Laporta was good. McBride was fine, particularly in PPR, but nobody like separated at all. You could kind of get by with a bunch of different guys. I believe I used Chig's score on my Kittle team, if I recall. He scored like 9, something like 9 from Chig. Again, like right, like I mean, I advanced the Jake Ferguson, Brock Bowers team. Neither of them did anything. I advanced an Evan Ingram, Pat Fryermuth Pat Fryermuth team. I advanced what I do think, which we'll get to, is my best team is Njoku Parkinson. Like Njoku was out and Parkinson scored 4 PPR points. So tight end was not the thing, but you really needed 3 really good wide receiver weeks. There was a bunch of different options to have that. But if you found Connor, Chase Brown, Ford, Dowdle, I'm probably missing Bucky. If you found some of those guys at running back, you'd be good, right? You'd at least like hang in there at running back. Tight end doesn't really matter that much. Don't take a 0, but a tight end didn't matter that much. Quarterback, now Lamar and Allen really kind of separated, but you could overcome that. I don't have much. 4 Lamar teams, and I don't think the Josh Allen team. Okay, 1 Josh Allen. Right, but you could have Hurts. I advanced a Burrow team, Jaden Daniels, like I said, the Goffs. I advanced the Mahomes and Tua team, which was terrible. It took like 14 quarterback points. But when you have Devontae Adams and Mike Evans, and I think, who did I use? I used Josh Downs. But again, I have Jonnu and then Connor and Chase Brown, to your point, plus Bucky. So like you get that, like it kind of didn't matter, but you needed multiple big wide receiver games, probably 3, for sure 2, but you definitely needed at least 2, probably 3 of those, which goes into Jason's question. All things being equal, would you rather have a strong running back room or a wide receiver room this week? Most of my advancing team only have 2 to 3 viable running backs, but 5 good wide receivers. I would rather have 2 to 3 viable running backs and 5 good wide receivers. The receivers can fill more spots in my. So I have to start 3 wide receivers, right? So I need at least 3 good ones because I need to fill at least 3 spots, and they can fit the flex. So I can play 4 wide receivers. I have to play 2 running backs, and I can play up to 3. Obviously, we all want a bunch of both, but like if you have Saquon, if you have James Conner, if you have Chase Brown, if you have some of these guys, they do come baked in with I know Saquon has not had as an awesome like last couple of games, but they come with such a floor. Kyron Williams is a good one, right? Like even when Kyron doesn't smash, you're just like, I know I'm using Kyron's score. He's going to get double digits. And like, it's just, does he get 20 something or 12 or 13? It's like, I know I'm using it. I'm getting that floor. I'm okay with that. I mean, I might still lose points at the running back position, but like, I'm cool with that. It's also a little bit easier for like the viable running back to get you that, usable week. Aaron Jones being the greatest example. Like he wasn't awesome and the Vikings didn't exactly light it up on Monday night, but when you're the lead back, you get goal line touches and you catch a few balls, like you can stumble your way into a pretty good week. It's a little more, now it doesn't feel like it's more difficult for the wide receivers after last week, but that was 1 week. We had 14 weeks of it being a painful grind to get wide receiver big games. Plus, in the playoffs, we need to, what we kind of talk about layering. Ben Gretsch has always called it layering, or I like to call it like passing the baton. Is what you want to have is a bunch of. You don't need to have your entire team completely healthy, and that would be awesome if you had your entire team completely healthy and with a role that's good enough to post a big game. But what you really need is just enough guys to kind of, all right, I'm running this relay race. I got you through the regular season, so like whatever. Jordan Mason helped me get through the regular season, partly, right, for 6 weeks or whatever. All right, it's over for Jordan Mason. Hand the baton off to Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford, you helped me in weeks 15, maybe week 16. Get me, maybe Joe Mixon has another down game, but then they hand the baton off to Joe Mixon in week 17. He has a big game, right? Or this week in week 16 against the Chiefs. Like you want to keep passing that baton. You want to keep layering in points. And I think the best way to do that is with having a bunch of wide receiver firepower because they just have to fill more spots. You don't want to be, which I am very much, unfortunately, reliant upon Devontae Adams to do it 3 weeks in a row. And if he does it again this week, he's already, going to be highly owned, even like probably with a down game this week in the finals. If he does it again this week, which he very well might against the Rams, like you have like a mega chalk wide receiver, right? Which is okay. There are worse things than having one of the best wide receivers in fantasy on your team in the finals. Well, the dream is to kind of like I said, everybody hands have enough firepower. So if Devontae has a bad game this week, then next week, all right, cool. I'm totally down to have Devontae because his finals ownership really got drug back. And I think, the more you rely upon the exact same wide receivers every single week, it's a little bit tougher to do that. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting DTR for anybody that didn't see Jameis got benched, and it sucks for our Browns fantasy bags. I guess I'll use that as a good segue into again what I think is probably the team that I'm sweating the most. Again, it's in the 5-5-5, but does only have Jaden Daniels. Shouts to Gardner Minshew. That sucks, but honestly, whatever. Like, if Gardner Minshew was going to come save the day, like we were probably in a little bit of trouble anyway. But Jaden Daniels against the Eagles is an issue. And, running back gets thin. But this is kind of the exact question that just got asked. I have basically these three guys. Technically, Tyler Algier can get there. Technically. I wouldn't count on that by any stretch of the imagination. But, but the Algier thing could be like it's not the same because he was just really good, for the whole course of the season. But if you remember last year, Raheem Mostert, even though HN was crazy, good for fantasy, had a couple huge games and super duper efficient, you really kind of needed Raheem Mostert out of there to get real volume. And that actually happened in week 17. HN, after his crazy hot start, when he came back from injury, was really not very good, not providing much to us. And then Raheem Mostert misses week 17. HN gets 80% of the work or whatever in the Dolphins backfield. And then that's how you get the big game. Again, no one's hoping for like a Bijan injury or whatever, but we just saw Nick Chubb, right? We just saw Alvin Kamara go down. These things do happen, even if it's like one missed game. Alvin Kamara misses one game, you can get a Kendre useful week. That's really the hope with like an Algier or Corum, somebody like that is, Khalil Herbert, whoever. You're hoping that kind of that a lot of Burnett's keep making their way into the chat. That's funny. This team though, so clearly very reliant upon these guys, but the wide receivers are pretty good. And this one is benefited a little bit from like what we just talked about, where had just enough firepower. Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, George Pickens, Brian Thomas Jr., and then even Jalen Tolbert, Malik Washington, Trey Tucker, and Cedric Tillman. So, I mean, I didn't even really need JJ's score because Devontae, McLaurin, and Thomas were pretty awesome. I think JJ ended up getting into my flex over Kyron, I think. But nonetheless, right, what you would really like is bide your time, and then like George Pickens comes back. Bide your time, right? I don't know how this got through with only Colby Parkinson. That was lucky. That was super duper lucky. Although it did score like 208 points. But, David Njoku come back this week. Now, unfortunately, David Njoku is now playing with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and not Jameis Winston. Same thing. Cedric Tillman hopefully back this week, right? Off of concussion. Bide your time and then get healthy and get some guys back who are probably just going to be a little lower owned because they didn't play last week. If you can get some of that to happen in your pod. So this is the team that I'm for sure sweating. The other 5-5-5 that luckily clipped Karain, lost Gino, although I believe he's hopeful to play or whatever. Does have Burrow Chase, which is nice. But speaking of would you rather have better wide receivers or running backs? This team is definitely on the I don't really have any good running backs. I guess Javonte could technically post a score tomorrow night that helps me with McLaughlin hurt, but I'm long past putting any hope into Javonte Williams. It ultimately needs just like Aaron Jones every week. This week again, like just hang on. Devin Singletary's probably not going to score a touchdown every week. So Ken Walker's going to be back. So probably lose Sharbs. So the running back room here is pretty darn weak, but the wide receiver room is okay. Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and some meh there. But got a little flex help with having the kind of a bully tight end room, having Trey McBride and George Kittle gives me a little bit of help, so I can be a little bit lighter. I really just need 2 running backs to figure that one out, figure out a way to advance, and it is only 1 of 7, but that's kind of what we're looking at there. Definitely Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford's really explosive, and he is a decent pass catcher. So I think on DraftKings, like, it's okay. He can hit a home run as he did. I mean, the run he had, the long touchdown run he had this week was nuts. I can't believe that play. It was pretty awesome, but no Jameis. The interesting thing about Jameis is, I mean, he's getting benched for a reason, right? He has 12 interceptions and 5 fumbles in his 6 starts. I think it's 6 starts. So I mean, he's almost turned the ball over 20 times. He's taken a bunch of sacks. As fun as he's great for a good soundbite, and he's certainly a huge upgrade over Watson and DTR to like helping Jerry Jeudy, helping David Njoku, helping Jerome Ford like be relevant for fantasy, particularly Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku. But like, dude, like this Jameis thing, like we propped Jameis up. We put him on a pedestal that was so ridiculous, all because he throws for a bunch of yards sometimes. The reason he throws for so many yards is because it's self-inflicted wounds. He puts his team in all these holes. He fumbles, he takes sacks, he throws interceptions, he throws pick sixes at a rate that is like unbelievable. So like, it sucks for us that Jameis got benched, but frankly, he earned that one. And they're out of it, right? So they need to see if DTR can show anything to bring him back next year, whereas Jameis is gone, from the Browns. Amen, Corey. Mason was such a rug pull. Huge bummer. I agree. You will see. Let me just flip over to the exposure. Amongst my running backs, Jordan Mason is still my 4th highest owned advancing running back to week 16. Having a bunch of Connor and Chase Brown is good, but obviously I drafted like a metric ton of Tyler Algier, so this is pretty expected. But with 40% Jordan Mason left, sure would be sweet if he also didn't go on IR. But I'm pretty cool with kind of on down to I'm a little sketchy about Tony Pollard, but I'm okay with kind of this mix of running backs. I'm not sure many teams have all, a bunch of them. I did show the one with a pretty good running back room, but two Tajay, 2 Kendre is nice. A couple Sharps in case Walker does miss again. I don't like having Javonte, like I said, but a couple of this is the fun part of getting to week 16 and having a few different teams is you're not entirely it doesn't although it kind of does boil down to Devontae for me, but even then I have 5 teams without Devontae Adams. Jason says that the BBM pods have just advanced. This is a good question that I have not thought about. Obviously, it's so pod and slate specific, but how many unique players do you generally want to spike to advance out of week 16? I don't have a good answer to that, but I think it is a little more like last week, where there was a lot of ways to skin that cat, buddy, last week, Sure, you really wanted Devontae and Mike Evans, but Terry McLaurin was great. CD was great. Justin Jefferson was fine. Amon-Ra, you wanted Amon-Ra, right? You really wanted James Conner as the RB1 on the week. You really wanted Chase Brown, but there was a bunch of different ways to get home. And so I think that's what, our friend from BBMDB posted, like what the expected ownership would be if we used, like a sprint format this week. And Devontae, or a cut line, excuse me, not a sprint, a cut line format. And like Devontae was like just shy of 40% or something. But with so many different guys getting home, I think it creates a lot more variance a lot different. Like last year, the Laporta, CD, Amon-Ra, Goff, like ownership was not, it was out of control. And Amari was even higher than all of them. When you have just a couple of guys who spike and only a couple of ways, like it was basically CMC at the 1 or, in the top 3 last year, or you get CD, at 10, 11, 12. It was like, it's not the only way to advance last year, but it was kind of that binary. It was one or the other. And this year so far, that could all change this week. Amon-Ra does it again or something. That could all change this week. But as of right now, it was Ja'Marr Chase that was the guy leading the way. It was Saquon Barkley that was the guy leading the way. And that right now, those waters have been really muddied. And so I think we want to see another one of those weeks where a bunch of different guys spike, because especially if you're listening to this, you are a sicko, as you see at the top of your screen. Like when we draft in volume, we're just naturally going to get, right? Like I take player stands. Obviously, Tyler Algier naturally is going to be on a bunch of my teams and like some of these 0 RB hits. But right, like I got 3 B-Robs and 2 Chubas, even though he sucked. I got a couple Tony Pollards and a couple Sharps and a couple Kendres and a couple Estimes and, same thing, especially at wide receiver. Some Downs, some Bateman pops. So you get a couple of those teams through, but I got, Slayton, got some Pickens, got some Metcalf, got some, Jalen McMillan with a good game, but Roma Dunze also, like, we draft in volume, you just naturally get a little bit more spread out ownership in these playoff rounds. And so we want a bunch of guys to spike both for our chances to make it to week 17 a little bit higher, I think, because if it's all condensed on a couple of guys and we don't happen to have them, or we just don't have the right pieces around last year's Amari Cooper, it's over. The season's over. And then even if we do make it, we had last year's Amari Cooper get there. Well, now you're really dependent upon Amari Cooper. And then poof, guess what? Speaking of rug pulls, you lose Amari Cooper heading into week 17. So I'm looking for another a week like last week. Let's see. Yeah. I'm just worried they will have many 3 and outs with DTR. Versaire says definitely no pushback on that one. Hey, Corey says I got a Goff, Amon-Ra, Tim Patrick BBM. Tim Patrick is a genuinely good late round wide receiver to have right now, which I can't believe we're saying in almost 2025, but it's true. He's a genuinely good. Tim Patrick is probably one of the. Can you think of a late round, super late round wide receiver that's a better bet to catch 2 touchdowns in a game than Tim Patrick? He's probably not the best bet. Like you actually think prisoner of the moment, but now if Jalen Waddle really is hurt, Malik Washington's probably one of the better bets, like just from a yardage, a roll, a touch count, whatever the hell we want to call it, perspective. But like Tim Patrick is the guy who can, go 4 for 50 and 2 on the line on this Lions team, I think. I would not scoff at having Tim Patrick. That is for sure. Amen. Michael says, gotta love the last round Malik advancement. How much did I advance of Malik? 4 teams. See, so I'm not really actually expecting anything at all out of Malik Washington, but man, the run out is the thing we dream of. Getting more involved. 5 for 53 this week, 5 for 53, 5 for 52 this week in a disastrous Dolphins performance. But again, what I'm going to call my best BBM team somehow has Patrick Mahomes and Tua. Like the variance of this, we complain about pod variance and injury variance and all that kind of stuff. But like just the teams you end up happening to have certain guys on that get through to week 16. Like I almost never took Patrick Mahomes. Like I don't have my BBM exposure pulled up. It was very low to Patrick Mahomes. I didn't even draft very much Tua either. But when you have Mixon, Connor, Chase Brown, and Bucky Irving, and Tank Bigsby, frankly, you can carry Mahomes and Deneric Prince and Rashee Rice. Now, this is one of those teams that's lacking the wide receiver juice. So like I'm actually much stronger with 4 really good running backs and like, a couple other that could help, but I'm so tied to Devontae Evans and of course Tyreek. If we can get a Josh Downs game, that could be my path to the BBM finals, I think, because 2 good tight ends. Obviously, I need either Mahomes or Tua to do something to have a decent game, but I'm I'm more optimistic about this team than even like the golf team, right? Because the golf team has Connor, but it's a little bit more thin at wide receiver. It does have Cup, but again, it has Olave. The wide receivers are fine on this team, and I like Kittle, but this team I think just has a little bit more juice, albeit it needs Mahomes, Tua, and I really only have 4 wide receivers with Rice hurt and with Yoshi and Polk being completely just totally useless. But we'll take it again. A chip and a chair. Everybody said, yeah, pods are out. Josh looking at his pods and seeing Kyron and Chuba. Uh, you have Kyron and Chuba on all three of your teams, or you are the only one with Kyron and Chuba on your teams. We are definitely playing the hits with Malik Washington, but it is kind of funny. I'm not really that hopeful for him on underdog because I just don't know that he has that kind of upside. But I don't know, on DraftKings, he just went 5 for 53. Why can't he go 5 for 53 with a touchdown this week? I don't think it's ridiculous. If Waddle doesn't play, Grant Dubois is obviously still going to be out. Hopefully, I haven't seen the latest on Grant Dubois, one of the scarier football injuries we've seen in quite a while. I know it does have movement in his extremities, so that's good. But for anybody, I'm not recommend you go and watch. But if you've never seen, it's kind of like the football jaws of life, if you will. When that comes out for a guy, they have stuff that will cut your pads, so they don't want to move you because they're worried about paralysis, and so they have machines that can get your helmet all they unscrew your face mask and stuff from your helmet so that they can remove your helmet without hurting your neck, and then kind of the same thing happened to him with they cut your shoulder pads off so that they can get him off, and he was not moving on the way out. It was super duper scary, but supposedly he's doing better, so that's really good. But it's a brutal game. It's really we're not rooting for that kind of shit to ever happen, but it injuries do happen, and the run out for again like this team that I have, particularly Tyreek and Johnny Smith, and then if you have some Malik Washington, that this is the kind of stuff you hope for. You just hope to get lucky, right? You're just trying to put yourself in the best position to benefit and win the most money when you get lucky. And Malik Washington got pretty lucky down this with Jalen Waddle getting hurt again. Josh said he has both Kyron and Chuba on all 3 of the team and is the only person with those 2 in all 3 pots. Who Chuba plays Arizona. Yeah. So fine spot for Chuba against Arizona. A little bounce back spot after such a great season, and then loses Jonathan Brooks. And Chuba has his worst game. I think he's a pretty good guy to have. Nobody's speaking of last week. We would have spoke about Chuba like this is such a good piece to have. He projected like it's like the 6th highest scoring running back on the whole slate heading into last week. I don't have the projections pulled up right now, but we'll go over that. By the way, I kind of found that fun to look through some of the combinatorial stuff and how players are owned relative to their projections. So we'll do some of that again on Friday, on the Friday show. Tomorrow, we're going to do some playoff best ball drafts, have some fun with some playoff best ball. Take a little break from sweating our teams. It's only Broncos Chargers tomorrow night. Like, Jesus Christ, what a terrible Thursday night game. But that's what we'll get into the rest of this week. What is the deal with Debo? Somehow advanced him. Is there any room for optimism, or is he wash? There's definitely room for optimism. It's not great. Let's say that much. It's not great, but I still think that there's spikes in there from Deebo Samuel. This is not an awesome matchup. The Dolphins defense has been playing really well. So that game is like but they are both kind of off duds, and neither defense is like, untouchable. But it's just not great for Debo. But like, I believe they are not technically eliminated yet. So, it's going to be wheels up, balls to the wall from all of the Kittle, Debo, Garendo, Juwan, and the same thing on the other side with the Dolphins. Neither team is technically eliminated, but they got to win out and everybody else has to lose, so that they're pretty much eliminated. But Debo is definitely on the low end of the early wide receivers in terms of guys I would like to have. I would classify him as pseudo leverage, right? He is technically ownership leverage because not very many people are going to have him because he's had a very bad season and was not good last week. But, if he catches that ball, like, it's funny how one play, the difference in our perspectives, that slant that he had, I think he probably houses that the way the secondary was aligned when he was, about to catch that ball. If he catches that and houses it for a 50-yard touchdown or however long it was, I don't remember. Our outlook on Debo Samuel is probably just a little bit different, right? We are not like running to the podium like, hell yeah, let me cash in this EV on this Debo team because it's so sick. But you're like, okay, maybe there's some juice in there with Debo. The running back situation is not very good. Theoretically, they give him some more carries. He just has not been Debo. Maybe it's over. Maybe it's a little bit of variance, what have you. But I would have some hope. Like in terms of him versus a Kupp or a Metcalf, I think he's kind of similar to DK Metcalf, and Kupp's a little bit better in terms of like the early round leverage wide receivers. I mean, they're all better than Tank Dell, who I drafted so much Tank Dell. I think I have one. No, 0. I officially, with a million Tank Dell teams across all of best ball, he was so bad that he could not even find his way onto my final 13. So if you have a Tank Dell, yeah, I would rather have Debo than Tank Dell, which is unfortunate, bizarre, wild, what have you. I'm sure I missed some comments. I just want to double back here a little bit. Versaire said, I'm terrified of all the Puka teams getting through more than I'm scared of it. Yeah, I only advanced a couple of Puka teams, and I did not get any through. I am also scared of Puka. Let me see really quickly. I can't actually share my screen, I don't think, on this one. Yeah, well, let's just share it. I said we'd wait for some projections, but let's just look, just for fun. Let's just look. If I look at wide receivers, right? So this is DraftKings scoring. But if I look at the projections at wide receiver, who is the number one fantasy point projecting wide receiver on the Week 16 slate? Puka Nacua. So to your point, what is that? Any of the post-golf drinking stream make it? Post-golf. What? I don't remember this. I know Rob and I have done a drinking stream, but you got to remind me, Master Unknown, what that one is. But yeah, anyway, wide receiver projections. You see, literally Puka is the highest projected wide receiver. Now, again, that's PPR. It's DraftKings scoring. Let's just because they use Underdog uses FanDuel scoring. So let's just look at that really quickly. Just a little peek behind the curtains at early. Still, Puka still the highest fantasy point projection. Actually, him and Chase have really kind of gapped the field. So I mentioned on Monday as the who are the guys that you would most want to have at each position, cost included. I kind of think Brian Thomas Jr. has made his way right into that conversation. Yeah, exactly. Puka over Chase confirmed. No comment. I don't know. I don't know who I would rather have. I mean, ownership included. I'd definitely rather have Puka. I mean, he projects for more points, and he's lower owned. So I should say I do know who I would want to have in any one individual week. Setting ownership aside, like what Ja'Marr Chase can do is probably unmatched by the field. But right, we're splitting hairs here. Who the heck wouldn't want either Puka Nacua or Ja'Marr Chase? And Puka projecting as the wide receiver one with got to be very very low ownership is pretty crazy. But like I mentioned, Brian Thomas Jr. in terms of guys you want, guys you need. This is funny that it's got the showdown ownership in here, but or 2-game slate maybe that's from the 2-gamer. Just quickly, the wide receiver projections. So the holy cow, Jordan is the only team with Chase. So you see, Chase's ownership got knocked down a bunch. So this week's going to be crazy because the guys with the highest ownership in your week 16 pods, very different from the guys with the highest advance rates. So that's fun. This is a fun playoff run out so far. But Puka, Chase, Jefferson, AJ Brown, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams. So those Mike Evans, Devontae Adams games, not fluky, right? Not fluky. These are top 6, 7, 8 wide receivers. Amon-Ra up there, CeeDee Lamb up there. But like I mentioned, Brian Thomas is the guy who kind of jumps off the page here from an ADP perspective. The rest of these guys were elite wide receivers. So again, to the zero running back point, how could you get 3 of these guys on the same teams? Well, sorry, Saquon and Derrick Henry. We're taking some wide receivers. But Brian Thomas Jr. being a top 10 projected wide receiver is a huge, huge deal. I'm sure he's going to be popular given the game that he had last week and having a really good season for his price. But man, just an awesome, awesome guy to have. Lab McConkey up here pretty highly too. Although, Lab McConkey, Jacoby Myers, these are projection loves. Like they project for a bunch of volume. They have really never put up like monster games. Lad has a couple, but generally speaking, and then we get to Cooper Kupp, who we just talked about, had a 0, feels bad. Like I said, I look at 4 freaking Cooper Kupp teams, and because of the pain of last week with the 0, it feels bad. But he's a top, what is this, top 15? Yeah, and like a top 15 wide receiver. Heck yeah, that's the kind of guy you want, right? Even Neighbors is up there. Sutton, another good one. The Chargers defense has been not great. Not great. So Sutton looks like a pretty good one. Terry, JSN, right? But you see here, it's still all the top projected wide receivers until we get to like Brian Thomas, Cortland Sutton, Juwan Jennings. All the good projections. Jerry Jeudy is here, but right, then we lose Jameis. All the top projections are at the wide receiver position. Let's look at, and that's half PPR, right? So let's look at running back really quick. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back 1. Chase Brown, running back 2. No, it is not Saquon Barkley. No, it is not Derrick Henry. No, it's not Josh Jacobs. No, it's not Bijan Robinson. Jahmyr Gibbs, the RB1 overall in half-point PPR projections. Chase Brown, RB2. Saquon Barkley, RB3. Jacobs, Bijan. But then again, look, Chuba, James Conner, Joe Mixon's a 5th-round pick or whatever. Isaac Guerrero, super late round pick. We do have Henry and Achane and JT, but Dowdle, Bucky, Charbonnet. So this is clearly still assuming Ken Walker is out. Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, James Cook, Brian Robinson, right? Like there's a lot of options at the running back spot to have those good games. But if you're able to, similar to the Ja'Marr Chase thing, Jenks also, Jordan and Jenks, both the only Ja'Marr Chase teams in their pod. That is sweet. The same thing can be said for Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry, quite frankly. If you were able to get a Saquon Barkley team through, wheels the F up. Like I would be super, super excited about that because you're probably going to be one of the only teams in your pod. And in BBM, which is what Jordan and Josh were mentioning, that kind of thing is like even more powerful, right? You're trying to see best ball and call. See, look at this. Hopefully you guys are, please tell me none of you guys are in my BBM pods because I do think I have one Chase. No, I have Amon-Ra and Tyreek, so I don't even have Chase left in in BBM. But right, that's the dream in Best Ball Mania, where you got to finish first out of 16 teams this week to be the only team with like the two highest upside, Jamar Chase and Saquon Barkley, the two highest upside players in all of fantasy. Like that's what we want. You know what I mean? That's the dream. See, this is the same thing. In Vadim's Bulldog Pod, he says he has the only Chase and the only Josh Allen. Right? Like that, that's the dream, is to get the highest upside, at the lowest ownership. That's why when we talked about Debo, we talk Cup is okay. When we talk about, DK Metcalf or whatever, they're lower owned. And so that's good. It's not a bad thing, but it is worse than what the dream is to get like with some of these super top guys, right? Let's look at tight ends super quickly. McBride, Bowers, Kittle, Kelsey, Hawk. So Hawk's up there. I think Njoku is probably the guy that falls into this, although I'll be interested to see, Kittle and Bowers off of bad games. So I think Njoku would be the tight end. But again, yeah, I'm kind of in the moment forgetting that DTR took over for Jameis. So maybe it's Kittle. Maybe it's Kittle that's probably that leverage at tight end. Could be Hawkinson, although he hasn't quite shown that level of ceiling yet. How does Andrews project? Not awesome. What's that? 12th? Like 12th or 13th amongst tight ends. Yeah, fantasy points. It's kind of a low projection for Mark Andrews, but I do find it interesting with Andrews. And so to be clear, he has outscored this projection in 4 of 5 weeks and 5 of 7. So but the projection is making it right. He's scoring a lot of touchdowns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Basically, when Andrews scores a touchdown, he's very useful. When Andrews doesn't score a touchdown, right, we've had 3 half PPR points in both of those games. So 9, 16, 13, 16, 12, and then 3 and 3. So he is a volatile. He is a volatile player, but I think I don't want to write that off though either. Just because his median is not amazing, he's still, it's like Laporta. It's like Tim. It's like the Tim Patrick thing earlier. It's like, yeah, he's going to have some down games. You just hope that it doesn't happen for these. It's only 2. We only need 2 good games. Being attached to Lamar Jackson, being attached to the Jared Goff Lions offense, right? Being attached to these situations is really all you can hope for. And I think the Ravens and the Lions in particular are the best. Not that, I mean, the Bills are there, but it's like all Josh Allen and I guess James Cook, the running backs. So I just think that those couple of offenses really, really stand out. This is interesting. Andrews has never scored a touchdown in his career against the Steelers. I hope my facts are correct, but I believe that's right. Even if it's not, he probably hasn't scored many. If that's something that is at the top of your mind, you've heard somewhere or whatever. So that pretty much does it for a quick early. Got to see some of my teams, got to talk through some of your teams, some of the leverage points, see some of the projections. Think ahead to what's about to happen. What do we want? How many running backs do we want? How many? All of that different stuff. Yeah, and as Sal said, we haven't even discussed much quarterbacks because there's a million backups starting. Michael Penix, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a backup / third string, right? Hopefully getting Aiden O'Connell back for Brock Bowers. There's a lot to shake out. We'll have more information later in the week. So on Friday, we'll dive into, now that we'll have more news reports. We'll have one game that already played out, and we will be able to dive into some projections, right? News, injury reports, how things are looking for week 16, and dig into a little bit of that on Friday. And tomorrow, we're going to come back. We're going to draft some playoff best ball teams. Let's take a breather. Put the BBM teams away. You've obsessed over them. We've obsessed over our DraftKings teams. We'll put those away and come back tomorrow and draft some playoff best ball teams. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. As always, we have the lab on Wednesday nights. I'm probably going to have to dip out early. We're going to the SLU basketball game. But nonetheless, hop in the Discord in the link in the description. You can get access to that and all things of a free best ball community with all the sickos hanging out. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon and good luck looking through your BBM and best ball pods.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there, you can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.